Well, it's almost been 3 years, and today's the end of a long, hard-fought battle. But we have our person, and we have him where he belongs. So for that, we are thankful for all the men and women that put the work together, put this case together, and once it's part of the court system, it was a little ugly, but we got that conviction, and we're glad to be moving on. Glad we can move on.
Steve, the family or the judge talked about how we may never know why, and it may not be worth it to try to answer the why for something so senseless. You can't make sense of it. What do you feel about that?
There's some truth to that, but then, there's also the fact that, what would he tell as a lie as to opposed to the truth, so.
The knife, if he gave the knife up, or if he gave a part of his kill kit, if he gave out facts that only the killer would know, part of his kill kit, if he gave out facts that only the killer would know,
it would corroborate things.
It would corroborate things, and he even addressed there's been way too many conspiracies, and the surviving witnesses had to go through hell. Well, no better way to protect them than by getting some of those details. If you got those details, then as simple as just saying I did it solo would have been valuable, I think. And we stand by the negotiation wasn't justice. It was just it was a shortcut, and we said from the very beginning we're not interested in a shortcut for our daughter. And we wanted everything.
Steve, you turned the podium at one point. Talk to us about why you wanted to stare at him face to face.
Because he's a coward. He's been protected by the court from day one, the minute that he was arrested. So I wanted to let him know that I was directing everything towards him, and his days of being protected are coming to an end. From what I've been explained, he gets on a van today, and he's got like 11, 12-minute ride, and then he'll be the responsibility of Idaho State.
Were you planning on turning the podium, though, or did you do that in the moment?
I remember reading it saying, "Do not move." So I was like, well, I'm moving this. I just kind of made that decision right then and there. So, I want to make it as difficult as possible. I knew my daughter was going to do a speech, and I'd heard it, and I was like, he's going to hate this. He's going to hate this next set of people that are going to come forward and really rip into him and really expose him for what kind of a piece of trash he was. And we've been waiting a long time to say some of those things that needed to be said.
Stephen Jr., you chose not to speak. Speak now, is there anything to say?
I've written up a statement. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe this is where you do.
Okay. Well, allow me a second.
Maybe it wasn't court appropriate.
Yeah, it definitely wasn't. Yeah, my name's Steve Goncalves. I'm Kaylee's older brother. She was my little sister, my friend, the middle child in the heart of our family. There are no words that can fully describe her spirit, but if you knew her, you knew joy, you knew light, you knew someone who made everything better just by being in the room. My statement was largely grounded in one goal, and that was to do everything for anyone who listens to this and has to go through something similar, to not have to endure what we had. My family's fought tirelessly, not just for answers, but for accountability. We've stood in front of cameras, behind closed doors, and across from people who didn't want us to speak, but we did, and we won't stop now. Across nearly every murder case prosecuted by Bill Thompson, including the killing of University of Idaho football player Eric McMillan, there is a clear and troubling pattern. Families are left feeling unheard, justice is negotiated down through plea deals, and the public is left with unanswered questions. In the McMillan case, charges were reduced from first-degree to second-degree murder, prompting confusion and outrage from the victim's family and community. The same pattern is emerged in the Silas Parks and John Lee cases, both of which prosecuted by Bill Thompson. Her capital-eligible crimes were resolved through plea agreements, sidestepping trials and diminishing public accountability. The most egregious of these crimes was the brutal killing of Whitney Parks, a young pregnant woman whose life was taken by her husband, Silas Parks, during a violent domestic assault. Whitney was only 22 years old. Whitney was beaten and strangled in her own home, an act of cruelty that not only ended her life, but also the life of her unborn child. And yet, despite the devastating nature of this crime, Bill Thompson reduced the charges from murder to voluntary manslaughter, ultimately securing a sentence that allowed Parks the possibility of parole after just 5 years. There was no trial, no full accounting of what Whitney endured, no acknowledgement in the legal outcomes of the child she was carrying. For Whitney's family, and for anyone who believes that justice system should speak forcefully for victims, this wasn't justice. It was a deal, and it was like so many others under Thompson's watch. It prioritized expedience over accountability. Now, almost predictably, we find ourselves reliving that pattern in the current case. Despite the magnitude and brutality of the crime, the prosecution chose to accept a plea deal behind closed doors, without trial, without ever consulting our family in any meaningful way. In fact, we learned from the plea deal that had been finalized from an email from the prosecution team. Not in person, not with warning, not with respect. That moment underscored what we feared all along, and that this case was following the same well-worn path toward expedience over justice. This case was following the same well-worn path toward expedience over justice. Sentencing once again fails to reflect the severity of the act, and the emotional fallout has landed again on the shoulders of the victims' families, who have been left out, unheard, and grieving not just a horrific loss, but a system that continues to bypass them. The through line is undeniable. Whether it's 2004 or 2025, this prosecutional, is that a word? Sorry. Prosecutional approach has consistently abandoned the very approach it is, or the very people it is supposed to protect. The trend you'll notice from Thompson's prosecuted crimes are the following: plea bargains avoiding capital punishment, charge reductions, sentences that misalign with the gravity of the crime, lack of trial due to plea bargains. These aren't just failures in process, they're failures that have real consequences for real people. After reviewing Bill Thompson's history, it's clear our family was never given a fair chance at justice. But this isn't just about a prosecutor's record, it's about Kaylee. It's about my sister. She's not just one of the Idaho 4. She was a daughter, a sister, a best friend, and the light in every room she walked into. When the prosecution followed the same path we've seen before, closed doors, limited input, and a plea deal handed down without our voice, it became painfully clear that Kaylee was being treated just like another case. But she wasn't. She was everything to us, and our pain has only deepened, knowing that the system didn't fight for her the way she deserved. I'll leave everyone with this. There's 1,000 things I wish I could say to Kaylee, but today I'll just say this. I will always carry her with me for the rest of my life, and I will never stop being her brother.
Steve,
thank you.
Now that the gag order is lifted, is there anything that you've learned over the last 2.5 years from the investigators or the prosecutors that you can share with us now that you can speak about?
Well, I think it was kind of interesting that once the president sent a truth statement out, they called us right up and they told us everything. So I don't know what was holding them back before, but we spent about 3 hours, close to 3 hours with the lead detectives, and yeah, we found because our main thing was we didn't want to have victims advocate statements that had lies and misquotes and misinformation in it. So I appreciate the president, putting a little bit of pressure on there, and it seemed to work. Up until that time, they told us they were not going to tell us, and we were going to have to just wait for the things to be unsealed. But yeah, it was horrific what Kaylee went through. Yeah, and I don't want to protect this guy, but I won't give out all the details. I'll be general, but yeah, she was stabbed over 30 plus times, and she was struck, and there was quite a bit of damage to her face. So this guy's just an absolute monster. Anyone who thinks that he's otherwise, I just looked at pure demons out there. When I was looking at him, we had a stare down, and he's just filled with demons. He's dark pits of eyes, and there's something seriously wrong with that man.
Steve, why was it important for you to look him directly in the eyes? And what did you see as you spoke to him?
I looked him straight in the eyes and I just seen black holes and just anger at me. He was telling me with his face that he fucking hated me. He absolutely fucking hated me.
And why did you want to speak to him directly that way?
It's the most personal one. Like,
Yeah,
look at me
yeah,
in my eye.
yeah.
You took my daughter's life. Look at me.
Yeah,
Did your family get something today that it needed? What's this?
yeah, 100%.
I think it's a little early to actually even answer that for myself. I think that kind of stuff needs to set in and sink in, and you know, you regret maybe saying some things, or you wish that you would have said things. So I think right now
Yeah.
we're just kind of in the mix of the tornado, and you know, the real feelings. You know.
As the spotlight then fades, what do you want the public to remember?
Our main thing is hopefully this could be a template for another family that, you know, you can use the media as much as they're using you. You can use it to keep people accountable, keep people honest, keep the court system, you know, treating you with a little bit of respect. And I think that's what we did. And the more that you get active, I think the more chance that you're going to get that justice in the end. I think you really got to try to make your kids stand out, or you know, whoever you're trying to protect, you make them real. Get on the internet and talk to people.
Before you go, and I know you want to go, I want to ask, Olivia today was spectacular. But Olivia asked the question, what was the other weapon you used on my sister? So despite this meeting you had with the prosecutors, there still sounds like there's something you don't know there. Can you explain that to us?
No, we do know that another weapon was used on Kaylee. So we don't know what that weapon was, but
They didn't recover it.
along with the knife wasn't recovered. But Kaylee was not just stabbed. There was other things that happened to Kaylee.
Talk about that a little bit. The conversation we had with the prosecution was about healing more than anything. It was about giving the victims' families answers. And they may share some of that information at a later date, but today is not the day for that. Today is about the sentencing. It's about putting the defendant in prison for the rest of his life. So there may be more details to come about that, but that conversation that they had was about the healing process and finding some answers that they had. And so we may share at a later date, but today is not the day. Okay?
Thank you guys for being available.
Thanks.
Shannon.